Sports are a huge part of people's lives on a local, national, and global scale. Here in Philly, we root for teams and go crazy when they occasionally win. But what happens when the athletes we root for get hurt? How does an injury really affect a player, both short-term and long-term? How does it affect people's lives?
Here comes the, here comes the, here comes the, y'all don't really want it like that. Here comes the, here comes the, here comes the, y'all don't really want it now. E-double-L, I said so, I keep big bills up in my hood on the dirty like.
I played in college for 3 years, freshmen weren't eligible, and I played in the pros for 2 years before 2 broken ankles and compound fracture and dislocations ended my career.
I was playing soccer with a club that I play with on Saturdays, and I wasn't drinking enough fluids. It was more intense than a normal dehydration.
I went up for a corner because I'm a goalkeeper, and I got hit, and the back of my head slammed and hit the turf directly on the turf.
I tore my ACL twice. This happened during the game. 2 games in Kentucky. We played 2 games in Kentucky, and I was in the air. Someone pushed me, and I fell awkwardly on my knee.
For as long as sports have been around, there have been sports-related injuries. In the past few decades, sports equipment has gotten better, but injuries are still a serious issue for players.
The percent of players that are able to continue playing in that game, again, boils down to what's been injured and how severe it is. A very mild sprain can come back either with a brace or taping. Other injuries that are more severe, they may not be able to come back.
So I've seen the full range of injuries, from people missing seasons. Even that's more impactful than you realize on a person's season and even their life and what they've worked for.
It was hard. It was hard, just something that you gave your whole life to taken away from you. But it was more of a mental aspect as opposed to physical.
The immediate effects were pretty brutal. I couldn't go to school. I could barely look at the television or the light. I was sitting in the dark room for over a week. I missed about 14 days of school from first concussion.
While sports equipment and technology is changing for the better, to some, modern athletics are becoming more intense.
From playing as a younger kid, I did see the game change. It got a lot faster, more competitive, and as I prepare to enter SEC, it's probably the most competitive high school level of football there is, as opposed to NFL. So, as far as injuries, I see more injuries as I grow and I get higher in the levels of football, and the competitiveness is even higher.
The only way you're going to be one of the best players or the best teams is to work extremely hard. Now, that also leads to a lot of injuries. I think the injury rate is going up, especially in my sport. The athletes are getting bigger and stronger, so that in itself makes the collisions a little bit more violent. So I would say that, yeah, I definitely have seen an increase in injury based on both increase in the amount of practice and work that people do year-round.
In the sport of football, concussions have increased dramatically, or at least the reporting of concussions have been reported. I'm not so certain that injuries have increased as much as the reporting of injuries have increased.
What is it that makes players want to go out and play their hardest and possibly get severely hurt? Is it for the love of the game? The possibility of being famous? Is there something about being tough enough to take the pain that leads players to dismiss the possibility of a career or sometimes even a life-ending injury?
Recovery times are extremely important in injury prevention. The individual differences in how people deal with injuries and follow up to injuries later. I've had players who can play with pain.
A lot of the time, maybe some of the kids feel like they won't be as respected if they walk off the field, and then they'll be judged outside of school if they come off and leave their team before the game ends. I know, like, a lot of what used to be friends picked on me a lot with recovering from my concussion, and they're like, "Oh, you're fine, man. It's been over a month." But deep down, they don't know how hard physical therapy has been, and just getting back into the swing of things. And I don't know. I feel so. A lot of the time, players are afraid to come off the field because of the result that they their teammates and or friends may have for them when they leave their team in like a tight game or something like that.
Being macho in sports is a really big factor in sports, seriously. So if you have all this, how you say, macho-ness, you have like a certain drive for the sport and you like really want to excel in it. So people going out with injuries is not the smartest thing.
A lot of the coaches kind of like ingrain that into your brain that like you have to be tough and like, oh, get up, it's nothing, like you'll be fine, just walk it off. So when these kids go to high school, it's a completely different atmosphere, and especially as a younger player playing on a varsity team, you can't be the kid that is soft or not tough. So there's a little bit of a macho aspect into not realizing the injury and continuing to play.
There is information for players about the injuries that they are facing, but it can also be said that we aren't teaching them enough and that there is still a long way to go. With the growing concern over the safety of athletes, it is possible that playing a sport will become less questionable for a player who is actually worried about being hurt, and perhaps sports victories will be even more glorious when we know that the people playing are not risking their health and safety for something as simple as a trophy.
I think over the years, players have been even better educated about injuries. Number one education has been in injury prevention, doing those off-season conditioning techniques that have either been shown or felt to help decrease the rate of injuries.
In the sport of football, I do not believe that we can prepare young men enough for the dangers that it takes to participate in that sport. Certainly we can educate them as to the number of injuries, the kind of injuries that might impact them later on in life.
I don't think the parents and also coaches do a good enough job of explaining to their kids the risks at a young age, because a lot of the time these kids they start playing sports at age 4, 5, or 6, and they fall in love with it, and their parents just want to see their kids have a good time. But even kids at a young age of like 10 can be getting concussions. I know one of my best friends, he has had 4 massive concussions all at the age span of 10 to 12, and all he can play is like golf and non-contact sports.
I don't think we're doing enough to teach them about how to take care of your body. So I think the doctors and coaches need to really focus on like showing their athletes how to properly take care of themselves when they're in this sport or any sport.